Nick. In this video, I'm gonna make you just a little bit funnier. You ever told a joke or said something that you thought was funny and it just kind of landed flat? Yeah, me too. So we're gonna review a joke I wrote recently. We're gonna keep it real simple, and we're gonna have a few laughs while we learn. At the end, I'll show you the full joke performed live, but first, let's take a look at the joke that inspired it.
Anyways, do you guys think that women should vote? Okay, seriously though, I think that most women should not vote, but only because, hear me out, I think the only people that should vote are single moms, you know? They're the only people that deeply understand that if you pick the wrong guy, there are consequences.
I love jokes like this. So what we're gonna do is strip it down to the bare minimum, the setup and the punchline. We wanna remove as much as possible and still have it be funny and make sense. Here's what we get. The setup is, I think single moms are the only people who should be able to vote. And the punchline is, because they fully understand that choosing the wrong man has consequences. Pretty simple so far. Now that we pulled out the setup and the punchline, we can determine the type of joke and the elements inside of it. This is a brutal truth joke or a harsh truth. The punchline is something everyone kind of knows, but nobody says out loud. And the element he uses to deliver it is an analogy, comparing women choosing a man or a partner to someone choosing a political candidate. These are two totally different things, but the comedian finds a fun way to use overlapping language from both worlds in a really funny way. That is what's called incongruity. It just means two worlds or ideas that don't seem related suddenly snap together in a way that feels obvious after you hear it. Like in this joke when he says, I only think single moms should vote, the two ideas are single moms and voting or politics, and your brain doesn't automatically connect them. There's no clear logical bridge, but when he reveals the punchline, that single moms understand the consequences of choosing the wrong man, it suddenly makes his setup make perfect sense. And that little moment where something feels surprising and undeniable at the same time, that's incongruity. A lot of jokes are built on this because human brains love it when it recognizes a pattern it didn't see coming, and it actually gives you a tiny dopamine reward for solving it. This is the same mechanism you feel with riddles, puzzles, plot twists, anything where your brain suddenly snaps two ideas together and goes, that makes sense. And outside of the essence, the setup is a misdirect that also happens to be taboo. When he says, do you think women should vote? Your brain instantly lights up because that phrase carries a lot of history and controversy. The taboo makes you automatically pull up all the baggage around it and grabs your attention. The misdirect is that your mind starts to try to figure out his stance or his politics, but that's not where he's going at all. He's just using the taboo to pull you one way so he can flip it later. The real joke isn't about politics or voting, it's about the brutal truth in the punchline. Now that we know the type of joke we're dealing with, a brutal truth delivered through an analogy, we can make our own version. To write jokes like this, we start with the brutal truth itself because that becomes the punchline. Once we have that, then we can build the setup around it. So I started off by thinking about groups where society has some kind of stereotype, stigma, or unspoken rules. Stuff we're not supposed to point out. Things about men, like being bald or short, things about women, weight, body shape, appearance, whatever it is, basically anything where there's a trait everybody notices, but it would be considered rude or impolite to bring it up. So the first one of these that clicked for me was balding men. I thought, okay, what's the harsh truth here? And then immediately I thought about how a receding hairline is very similar to a battlefront, the front line of war, because I used to be a balding man with a massive receding hairline. I used to look in the mirror and genuinely wonder, how much more ground did I lose last night? Yeah, that was me. I was basically watching a slow military retreat unfold on my forehead. But I won. I got a hair transplant. And this is literally the incongruity we talked about earlier. You take one world, balding men, and suddenly connect it to a completely different world, military battle. Once you've found that bridge between the two worlds, you can start to play. You can pull language, imagery, cliches from that second world. So I thought, balding men would make the best military generals because they live on the front line of battle every day. Or maybe the punchline is about people who are extremely used to losing, because balding men fight a losing battle every single morning. Or who do you want on your side when things get tough? Balding men. They show up every day, even though they're losing ground. And then totally randomly, I saw a woman who was very well endowed walking with her friend who wasn't. And I remember thinking, wow, those are two very different lives. And then it hit me. Small-breasted women understand what it's like to work with limited resources. And we've all heard some version of that joke before. It's one of those truths that just sits in the background of our culture. And that one landed instantly for me because it was simple, sharp, and brutally true. And it gave me a perfect analogy. Limited resources, budgeting, money, finances. There's a lot to work with in there. And it's even a little taboo. It's a charged topic, talking about anybody's bodies, but women's bodies, women's breasts, the whole cultural thing around objectification of women, plus the old stereotype about women being bad with money. Perfect. So now I had my punchline. Small-breasted women understand working with limited resources, and all I needed to do was make a setup. And the setup just has to point in a different direction long enough for the misdirect to land. Something about money, budgeting, who should manage finances. Some things that popped into my head were small-breasted women should manage all budgets. Women get a bad reputation with finances, but small-breasted women, they're the exception. People say women are bad with money, but small-breasted ones, they know exactly how to stretch a dollar. And this is how setups get engineered. You pull from cliches, stereotypes, common cultural references, whatever helps you grab the listener's attention and lead them down the wrong path just long enough for the punchline to surprise them. And that's the whole process. Punchline first, work backwards to build a clean setup. It's the exact same structure of the original joke, a brutal truth joke delivered through an analogy. And now that you've seen how I built it, let's take a look at the final version of the joke performed live. And afterwards, I'll come back with a quick recap. Do you think women are good with money? Nobody? I've got one or two people. Okay. So some people think that women aren't good with money. And they don't think they should be working with it, working in finance, government, and budgets. I think that's a little incorrect, a little outdated. I think we should have only one type of woman working with budgets, and that's small-breasted women. You guys already know the punchline? No? Because if any group on this entire planet understands truly what it's like to work with limited resources, it's them. So what'd you think? You already saw the setup and the punchline earlier, but did you notice the opening line? Yeah, I started with a taboo misdirect. Do you guys think women are good with money? And that alone got a pretty good laugh. And now you understand why. It's a brutal truth told through an analogy with a bit of misdirect. And you can use the same thing in real life. You probably said something funny before and it just didn't land, right? Usually the issue is there's no setup. You just drop the punchline out of nowhere. Like if I walked up to somebody and said, small-breasted women are great with limited resources, people are not gonna laugh. They're gonna be like, relax bro, go over there. But if you give it a one-line setup, suddenly it becomes a joke. My office is hiring someone to manage the annual budget. I told them to look for small-breasted women. Now you've got their attention. And then you hit them with the punchline because they're incredible with limited resources. Boom. Tiny misdirect, clean analogy, brutal truth, done. Now, what'd you think of the little joke, little girl? Yeah, I liked it. It was a good one, right? I think everybody else is gonna like it too. It's one of the best ones I've written recently. Yeah, makes me want to licky too. Oh yeah, it was brutal truth. It was a little dirty, so I get cleaned up afterwards.